Alright, yo, so I'm going to be making a video here today. We're going to be comparing this table to the Fireball Tool Dragon Wagon. I don't have it yet, but we're going to be making a comparison here today. Doing a timed test. We're going to be building some trailer ramps. As you can see, I got the steel set up. Those are my stringers, those are the rungs, that's the hook. So I normally build them on this table. I've built them, every ramp I've built, I've pretty much built on this table. Well, at least in this configuration. I built some cheaper ramps before without a table, but the ramps that I build today, I've been building them on this table here. So yeah, pretty much what they are these things right here. That's the hook. I got some rungs. And you can see, I mean, it's pretty simple, you know. 2 pieces of channel, and then 8 of these, 1 of those. These are spaced 8.5 inches on center, and then this is 2.5 inches below that. So that's the way I build them. I've built them differently in the past, but that's the way I build them now. Every one needs to be the same size. They don't exactly have to be super perfect. Once you drive a skid steer up them, you know, a skid steer doesn't care if something's 1/10 of an inch out of whack. It's still gonna go up it. Or it's not, and then you're gonna struggle, you know. But you know, having something perfectly square or perfectly cut size, skid steer doesn't care. So you know, I've been building them on this table, and I would continue to build them on this table. But Jason was nice enough; he's gonna be sending me a Dragon Wagon to show off and you know, do stuff like I'm about to do today. You know, like build these ramps. And we're in our video call, you know, we were pretty much saying that even if you don't need the fixture table, it's going to save you a lot of time. How much time is going to depend on the complexity of your project and how good you are at jigging stuff up, I guess. I mean, there's different ways you can go about jigging stuff. But yeah, we're gonna find out. Alright, so this is the welder setup I'm using today. I got the Furnace Trans Steel 2200. We're running 365 inches a minute at 24 volts, which this will fluctuate a bit once I get welding. Not by me turning it, the machine does it automatically. This is not a joke. I know you've seen some of my videos where, you know, I'll turn this all the way up and I'll be welding on like some 16 gauge steel. I'll be like, yeah, these are my settings, and it's at like 720 and 45. No, I'm not joking around this time. These are my actual settings that I've been welding these with. I used to weld them at 280 and 19, but I've been doing some more experimenting, and I can weld a lot faster and still get good welds at these settings right here. So that's what we're doing. I have this other welder here, but it's not powered on today. It's a TIG and stick welder. We're using the Furnace today, but the type of welder you have really doesn't matter. This is just what I'm using, just so you can see that when I have the Dragon Wagon, I'll be using the same settings. So what I'm going to do to be able to lay everything out on this table is I have this this fireball tool square here with these pins on it. So what I'm going to do is first I got to measure and mark where everything's going to go. Then I take the speed square, throw that on there, make a line on both of them at the same time. Then I'll take this square, clamp it to the table. Not at this exact location, but it'll go like that. And then I'll set this piece up, clamp it there, flush with the end of this table. Then I take the pieces that have to go in it, throw them on the lines. Like if I make a line, I'll throw those centered, and then this one on the edge. It makes it pretty easy. So then I can push them onto the piece that's clamped to that. Then take this piece, flip it up, and line it up with the table, and just push it into the other pieces. Once they're all lined up with the end of the table, and then the pieces line up with the lines, I'll go ahead and get them all tack welded. This table's not big enough to tack weld them all at once. The piece back here has to be done separately, and then when I started using this square, these two on the end also have to be done separately as well, which is not too big of a deal, honestly. Then I go ahead and once everything's tacked together, I'll weld one rung out, flip the ramp over, get the papper on, and start welding. I don't like having the papper on when I'm just making my marks. And if I had a jig, I would just have everything all clamped up and just weld everything out in the jig without having to mark anything. So I would probably just have the papper on the whole time. I guess that's the downside to my system, is I don't have a fume extractor in here yet. If you had a fume extractor, you could save even more time, I guess, because you wouldn't need a papper. But anyway, this is what we're doing. And then, because I don't have the Dragon Wagon yet, it'll be a few days, maybe a few weeks before I get that. And I'll have to play around and see how I want everything set up in that to be able to know what I'm going to do exactly. Once I get everything welded, I'll figure out the time, and then I do some more stuff after that. But we're just trying to figure out, the welding time, how much time it would save you. Because I'm going to have to do the cutting after I get done welding, even with the Dragon Wagon. So it won't be like it'll save me any time with that. Some of the fabrications that you do, it will save you time, because you can go ahead and get that the post work done before you even jig it up, I guess, if that makes sense, depending on what you're doing. So we got our super fancy $5 time clock here. We're at like 8:43, 8:42. So by the time I get everything set here, 6:42, sorry. I was looking at the 8. By the time I get everything set here, it'll probably be 6:45. By the time I get the camera clamped up and ready. And we'll get going on this. Alright, so got her all welded up there. The time now is 7:10, so that took me 25 minutes to get it all laid out and welded together. Like I said, I still have some finishing to do. So, all in all, it's probably going to take me about a good 35 to 45 minutes per ramp, depending on how I'm feeling when I do it this way. But yeah, we had 25 minutes for the setup and welding on this. I did have to switch gases there. I ran out of 75-25 as I was completing the final tack weld there. So I swapped over to this 90-10. I did it real quick. It was only about a minute of time loss. Then this is what I was talking about. It kind of auto switches to like 25 volts. So yeah, it is what it is on that. Yeah, I gotta grind off all the BBs, cut the corners, and then it'll be ready for paint. I think some people would wire wheel it too, but I don't charge much for the paint, so I don't really care too much about that. With the time savings conversation though, I did pick this up on sale, but this is another story. It's a story for another day. But yeah, so 25 minutes to get this far, and yeah, I'm excited to see what I can do on the Dragon Wagon. I don't know if you guys could tell, but I've done this a few hundred times by now, so I have this pretty on point. Plus, I was welding a bunch of ramps yesterday as well, so although this is the first ramp of the day, I already had it in my arms, like I knew what I was doing. Sometimes if I don't mess with these ramps for a couple months, I forget what I'm doing and I'm a lot slower. So that also plays a big role in speed. And then, if I were to get some new person, who has never been in my garage before, I don't think they would even have it laid out in 30 minutes. Like I said, I've built a couple hundred of these this same exact way. And then I did actually improve yesterday because I used to use the speed square on the table, but now I started using that Fireball tool square, which makes it a lot quicker as well. And then this is kind of what I was talking about with Jason as to on the Fireball forum as to why I haven't purchased a big fixture table yet, because these are the main thing that I weld currently. I've been trying to get into other things now that I got the smaller fixture table, but with the big table, the big ticket items, I guess, would be these ramps. And it only took me 10 minutes to lay it out and get it all tacked together. So, I think it will only save me about maybe 5 minutes, maybe, per ramp. So, you would have to sell a lot of ramps to justify that 5 minutes per ramp. But then again, too, this is the first ramp that I built today, I was kind of motivated. I can definitely say from experience, when you're 6-7 ramps deep, you start dragging a lot more. At least I do. Doing it the way, like the layout just kind of kills you. So, maybe if the fixture table can help eliminate that motivational hurdle, maybe it'll play out a lot better. We'll have to see. So let's get the Dragon Wagon in here and figure out what we're doing. I guess while I was moving things around here, I did want to say, another big hindrance to this, to the speed of this, is right now I've been doing production MIG welding with these TIG welding gloves, because my stick gloves got some pretty big holes in them. I was getting burned a lot. So, if you're just doing like coffee tables or something, you could weld all day, probably not notice a difference. But, when you're doing this high amperage production, MIG welding, holy crap, does this thing get hot. I almost burned myself right there. It's been like at least 5 minutes since I welded. Yeah, it's another big hindrance to speed, is kind of need a water-cooled TIG or a water-cooled MIG torch. When you're 6 ramps deep into this, especially if you've been going at it, that torch gets freaking hot. I need to order gloves online though, so that's also my fault. It wasn't so bad when I was running the thicker gloves, but it seems like all these welding supply places, I think these welders got some small hands, What about us big-handed people? Need to get gloves for us, It's part of the reason why I don't have decent gloves. It's hard to get them. I need the 3XLs, not these crappy extra larges. Too small, man. So yeah, let's bring in the Dragon Wagon. Alright, yeah, so this is the new Fireball Tool Dragon Wagon. This is new to me. So I got it set up yesterday. I've actually never built a ramp on this yet, but I did build the jig for it. I figured it was a lot cheaper to just take some channel and some of these leftover handrail pickets, cut them up, and I used the table to set the spacing on these, so it should be all correct. Then I have everything set up on the table here. The reason for that is because on the table like this, once you're set up and run one ramp, you could run 100 of them and not have to change anything on your setup if you're set up correctly. That's the advantage of this table. So I'm not going to set up the fixtures there. I'm making this as like, this is a full production timed event. You're not going to sit there and break this down and set it up in between ramps. Sometimes if you have to change over parts, then you would have to, but the whole advantage of this table is you don't have to change it every single time you do anything on it. So we're going to take advantage of that. I'm probably going to throw the popper system on before I even start this, because I think I can just start welding on this once I get everything set, I don't think I'll have to tack anything together. Again, this is the first ramp I'll be running. So we'll see, does this actually save time or not? I cannot remember offhand the time that it took me to build a ramp the old school way. But we'll time it out here. We're coming up on almost 5 o'clock. I think by the time I get everything ready, it may be 5, I don't know, we'll see. Give or take a few minutes. So yeah, what I got going on is, you can see I got like this fish ladder type thing. The angle irons are just gonna kind of sit like that, and then that'll put the center right where I want them. I didn't do math correctly, and where the angle irons are set correct, when I put this the same way, it throws me off. So I'm gonna have to build the ramp, get the angle irons set. Then I'm gonna have to shim up the ramp to be able to get that piece right where I want it. So I got some 1/4 inch shims right here. We'll see how it goes, man. I'm excited for this. The welder settings are the same as they were before. So yeah, let's get this going here. I'm gonna get ready here, and we'll start timing it. All right, so we're getting ready to go here. Our time is 4:59. Let's do this. Alright, we're done. What time is it? It is 5:21. That was 22 minutes. Yeah. Like I said, there's some more finishing stuff I got to do. I'll get this tapper off here. Alright, now it's 5:27. So I'll get this Alright, so I got the packer off now so you can hear me talk better. Yeah, so we got one ramp completed. We even got it cut and grinded. I don't have it painted yet, but I can't remember if in my comparison I did the cut and grind. Honestly cannot remember. So I went ahead and did that on camera here. Even though I did not have the saw or the grinder set up, it only took me 7 minutes for that part. So in total, it took us 28 minutes to weld and then prepare the ramp, get it prepared for paint. Some ramps I sell just like this as is, so I guess we can consider that a completed ramp. I'm gonna have to check the video to see how long it took the old school way, because I honestly cannot remember. Just to get it welded, it only took 21 minutes doing it this way. And I did go ahead and tack weld everything before I started actually welding on this. That way, like, I knew 100% like this thing is not going to be moving around here. If I go and weld one of these sides here, the other side might lift up. So I just went ahead and gave it a quick tack weld. That was the first production run I have made on these ramps on this table. So, maybe through time I can speed up that 21 minutes, but like I was saying, that's the one advantage to this table, is even with a lack of experience, you're still going to be putting out better quality stuff in a faster time than somebody that has more experience, but they're doing it like the old school way. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to rewatch one of my videos. Rewatch the part of the video where I was doing this the old school way to be able to give you a better summary of what took place here. So I guess before I do that, I can explain why I set this up the way I set it up. So I have very limited tooling for this table. I have 8 of these, and then I have 8 of these ones. Then I have, I think it's the 52 or the 40 piece shim kit. I only have one of them, so I only have 4 of each shim. I don't have any of the fancy sliding adjustable block type fixtures. I don't have I don't have anything fancy for this table yet. I just have these little pins that you just pop in a hole and push things up against them. So with the setup like this, the table is also too short to fixture a complete ramp. So I was thinking about it, and I'm like, how can I do this the cheapest way possible? And the solution was, I was thinking I'll have to extend the table, I'll have to get a bigger table, this, that, and the other. And I was like, wait, I saw this piece of channel here that I did not cut up yet. And I was like, and then I had a bunch of these leftover square bar deals, and I was like, I wonder if I can just figure out the offset that they need to be from the center. See, I marked the center. Then I had to put them 1 1/4 inches over to this edge. Then, you know, I would put like two of these little square deals in here. Then I would put shims, figure out how much shims that I needed, slide this up against the shims, weld it, and that's how I came up with that. And you know, I just went along all down the line, got every piece where it needs to be. It really didn't take that long. And now, you know, I have a quick jig here. I didn't want to have to build a jig, but you know, doing it the old way, I would have had, if I had to build a jig, it would have been a lot bigger, and then it would have only been for one size ramp. With this one, you know, if I want to build a ramp that's 16 inches wide instead of 15, I put this here and I put a 1-inch shim on it. Then I use the same thing here, and then it doesn't even take up that much room. You know, I can take something like this, throw it off to the side here, and you know, it doesn't take up much room when I'm not using it. Whereas if I had to build like 3 or 4 different jigs for different widths of ramps, the old school way, that would take up a lot of room. So this worked. It extended the table, although I don't know if the ends, you know, they might walk or whatever, but I have these as far out as they go, so you know, the skid loader's not going to care if the ends are pushed in or bowed out a little bit. Yeah, so that's why I have this. And then, you know, I could come up with some better fixtures here for the actual channels, but for right now, that's what I came up with, and that's what worked. I should have put a 1/4 inch flat bar running across this whole thing here up until the point where we got to that end piece, and it would have made it even quicker. But I didn't do the math on that. I thought, you know, the legs here were 1.5 inches, and I thought thought this one was also 1.5 inches. Put them up against each other. They are clearly not the same length. And then the leg length on this is actually a 1/16 of an inch under 1.5 inches. So that's why I had to put these little shims right here. It'll just give me a ramp that's 14 7/8 versus a ramp that's 15 inches total. So not a big deal, but it did add extra time because of my horrible math skills. So I guess I'm gonna have to cut my pieces 1/8 of an inch long instead of 1/8 of an inch short, and you know, then will be a true 15 inches. I never actually took notice to that when I was building them the old way, because, you know, I never really cared to measure that. So now I know I can fix it in the future, and, you know, we'll be able to speed up our time even more. So yeah, I'm gonna watch the other footage, and I'll come up with a summary for this. Alright, so it's a different day now. I've had some time to think about this a little bit more, and I'm gonna make a summary here. So these are the 2 ramps that I built on the video. This one here was built on the Wagon. This one here was built on my old table. One of the things I noticed for as far as quality goes is the measurements are all pretty much the same, give or take an eighth of an inch of where I wanted them to be, which is usually the acceptable standard. You know, when I was working at Manitex, there was a place that was building, you know, them really high-end crane trucks. Like they take like a Peterbilt or a Kenworth chassis and put a crane body on the back of it. They actually build those in Georgetown, Texas. I used to work there. You would think a place like that, you have to be pretty perfect. And now it's usually like plus or minus an eighth of an inch. So both of these pass that spec. But one thing that I did notice as far as quality goes is on the Dragon Wagon, when I put the rungs on, they all sit at the same level and they don't twist. This one that I put did the old school way, some of these rungs, like this one, it sticks out a little bit past that channel, maybe like an eighth of an inch or so, which most of the time it's not gonna matter. Sometimes if you have like a really tight channel that you're trying to stuff these ramps into underneath your trailer, that may get hung up. You know, it's not a big deal. You could probably just grind it down a little bit if you had to, but you know, you really don't want to do that when you're buying a brand new pair of ramps. Or if you're trying to sell a pair of ramps to somebody, you really don't want to have to sit there and grind the strength out of the ramp that you just made. So, you know, there's that going on. That's a positive for the Dragon Wagon. And then, yeah, to summarize about the times, right? It took us 21 minutes to weld this one, and I think it took us 26 minutes to weld this one. And, you know, so I actually called it out like pretty spot on when I was working on this one. I said, I think the Dragon Wagon is only going to save me about 5 minutes. So I was pretty spot on there. It saved me 5 minutes. So, you know, as a guy starting out, you know, this table here, the Dragon Wagon, it costs a lot of money, right? Like, the whole system is probably in the range of like $4,000 to $6,000 by the time you get like all the tooling and stuff you need. You know, it's a pretty intimidating thing for somebody just starting out. So one of the things you can do is try to justify that by, like, you know, if I can pump out like 10 ramps a day extra with this system, you know, is it going to be worth it? So, you know, saving me 5 minutes, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but that test is also flawed. Both of these that I did on video, they were the very first ramp that I built of the day. And then it's even more kind of flawed because this is the first ramp that I built on the Dragon Wagon. So potentially I could save more time on the Dragon Wagon. And then as the day goes on, you know, I can't speak for the Dragon Wagon because I only built one ramp on that so far. But I can say, without a doubt, when you're building these things the old school way, on my other table, you know, if I had like 10 ramps that I had to build in one day, you get like a couple of them, like 2, 3, you're good. You get to that fourth one, you're like, man, this really sucks. Especially when you're switching between a helmet like this, when you're tacking, and then putting the papper system on and off. Like it's like very mentally defeating. And then you feel like you've done a lot, and you look out at the pickup truck, and you still got like another 10 channels sitting out there. You're just like, dang, man, like this is never gonna end. And then, as you're getting older, that other table I had, I built it too low. So, you're kind of hunched down like this trying to weld. This thing is adjustable. So I raised it up higher, which I can do that on the Dragon Wagon. I raised it up higher while I'm welding on these. And then if I get something bigger, like the Vector jet that I had to build, I can lower it down and it's not a big deal. Whereas that other one, it has to be at the lowest level. Otherwise, you can't fit anything too big in here without hitting the ceiling or the garage things and whatnot. So, there's that. So at the end of the day, when you're 10 ramps deep, are you still going to be saving 5 minutes using the Dragon Wagon? Or is that number going to increase because of how slow you're going with the old school method? Because it's like a mentally defeating process. So you have that going. And then the other reason why I think this test was a little bit flawed is because I have about 4 years now, I've been building these style ramps on that old table. I've pretty much perfected a system where it's really hard to improve upon that time, especially it's just really hard to improve upon that time without a fixture table. So the times that it took me to build this one here, if I threw an employee on that, like if I got the neighbor to come in here and weld these things up, I don't think they're going to come anywhere close to the time that I did the old school way. Whereas with the Dragon Wagon, they may not be as quick as me as well, but I think they'll be probably about a half hour on one ramp doing it on the Dragon Wagon. Whereas, like I said, with this, they'll probably be a half hour just trying to figure out how to set it up. So that's where this thing is really going to shine. Is if you have employees that may not know exactly what to do, the Dragon Wagon is way easier to teach them on. And then also, even if you yourself know exactly what you're doing on these, when we go to build stuff like this, the rocket stove, that's something I've only built 2 of. So without a fixture table, trying to figure out a system to put that together, it's going to take me significantly more time. And that is where you're going to save the time with the Dragon Wagon, is if you're changing things up every day, or even every week or something. So yeah, I think I might have to redo this test and run like an actual production run, because I can run, I can use the Dragon Wagon without the tooling to be able to do it the old school way. And I can also use it with the tooling and be able to do it the way I did it on this. And I think that would be a better test, you know, running like, I don't know, 5 sets of ramps, which is 10 ramps. And then run it the old school way, and run it on the Dragon Wagon, and you know, see how long that test takes, and you know, also too, see how well I'm feeling at the end of it, because like I said, with this thing, I can raise and lower it depending on what I'm building. Whereas I know for a fact on the other table, like, you know, my back starts to hurt, my hips hurt. I've actually got really bad arthritis in my neck. I'm pretty sure I'll need titanium in my hip when I'm older. So, you know, when you're younger, you're not thinking about things like that. When you're older, stuff like that starts to catch up with you. So I think the Dragon Wagon is going to improve upon stuff like that as well, at least for me anyway. So yeah, I don't want to ramble on too much. This test concluded. We saved 5 minutes on this, building it with the Dragon Wagon on the very first ramp that I ever built on this, and the very first ramp of the day. So I'm going to play around with this some more, and then probably do some other tests, but do some other timed tests, and you know, maybe if I start selling more of these ramps, I'll do full-scale production run someday. It won't be soon. It'll probably take me a couple weeks to get to that point. I gotta get some other ramps I gotta sell. And then, you know, when I'm low on inventory, if I'm starting to sell these and I get some funds together, I'll put a bunch of these together in one day on the Dragon Wagon and see what happens with it. I think it'll be an interesting experiment. So if you want to see that, stay tuned. Subscribe to this channel. And if you want to see other things that I build on the Dragon Wagon, you know, I'll be doing a bunch of videos here soon. So yeah, I'll see ya.